So, let's be honest, if you're a pop culture fiend, there are some celebrities that you're just never going to like. You probably have your own reasons for not liking them, and maybe they don't actually stem from any sort of logic or reason, you just get a bad vibe. But should you say it? You know, you with your big girl job and your 401k. Do you reserve the right to put every single thought that you have about a celebrity out into the ether? Or, whether it's nice or not, should you keep it to yourself or amongst your local gossip circle? And this is not me being, facetious. I'm actually asking the question, where is the line there? And we're going to talk about that today. If you haven't already guessed, today we're talking about Millie Bobby Brown, who first rose to fame as a child star playing Eleven on the hit Netflix series Stranger Things. Millie has done quite a bit of growing up since then. She's now 21 years old, she's married to Jon Bongiovi's son, and she's adopted a more mature look that people have a lot of opinions about. It's worth noting here that Millie has drawn the ire of the internet since her childhood in the spotlight began. I've talked about this before, but a few years ago she was the subject of the unfunniest meme campaign ever created, where people decided to shitpost made-up stories about how she was a homophobe. Hilarious, I know, all of the brevity and wit of a Pop Crave parody account. She has also been the punchline of a fair amount of disses in the ongoing crusade against the rapper Drake, as Drake was known for messaging Millie and pursuing a friendship with her when she was 14 and he was 33. I find that in general, people tend to give a lot less grace to child actors when stuff like this happens to them. I think it's almost a subconscious phenomenon of, well, this kid has amassed more power and capital than I ever will in my life, and so therefore any smear campaign or out-of-pocket grooming incident thrust upon them during public stardom is negligible compared to the benefits that they may one day reap. And I think this type of dehumanizing thinking really shows itself once the child star grows up, in the form of a massive self-report.
Oh no.
Raise your hand. Don't leave.
Please, bro, look, I'm coming to talk to this girl, I swear to God.
Just have a seat, we'll talk about it.
Look, I wasn't gonna.
Okay.
I swear. Look at me, I'm so
That's
depressed.
fine. Have a seat, we'll talk about it.
Come on, man.
Man, I'm telling you, we can do this a couple different ways. The best way to do it is to sit on the couch and we'll talk about it. Sit on the couch.
Okay, who are you?
I'll get to that in a minute.
Please.
If you don't sit down, there's gonna be trouble.
Above all else, the internet can be a scary place sometimes, and as a creator who spends quite a bit of time online to make these videos, I understand just how valuable my privacy is, and to be honest, you should too. For example, did you know that your personal data can be stolen online by data brokers? Literally anyone online can buy your personal details, which could lead to the risk of identity theft or being the target of phishing scams. And that's why I am so thrilled to talk more about today's wonderful sponsor, DeleteMe. DeleteMe is a hands-free subscription service that will remove all of your personal information that's currently being sold online. After submitting my information, DeleteMe's privacy experts got to work finding and removing all of my personal details from places that I did not want them to be in. They also sent me a privacy report within the week showing me what they removed, and I personally appreciated the convenience, pace, and transparency of the whole process. And that's why I am so happy to team up with DeleteMe today to offer a special coupon code that will give you 20% off of all consumer plans, including family plans, because if brokers can see your info, they can probably see your family members too. Get 20% off of DeleteMe consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/KaylaSays and use my promo code KaylaSays at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/KaylaSays, code KaylaSays. And thank you so much again to our friends at DeleteMe for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so Millie has been in the press a lot recently because she's currently promoting a Netflix film called The Electric State. We'll come back to Millie's specific career choices in a bit, but her increased visibility in recent weeks has led to some discourse about her appearance. She seemingly ditched the brown hair for a blonde look, and many people have critiqued her for dressing older, looking more mature, telling her to fire her stylist for aging her significantly. Now, it's important to clock your own biases in the name of self-reflection, so let me do that really quickly here. When I first saw these comments floating around about Millie Bobby Brown and her new look, I didn't think much of them because it's no different from, watching those TikToks where people will do critiques of red carpets and outfits and reviews. This has been part of celebrity culture forever, and there was no immediate thought for me to think beyond that sort of typical run-of-the-mill innocence, right? But because of the way the internet is now, I've said this before, nothing can sort of happen in a vacuum. And even if you're just kind of doing a lighthearted or good faith or one-off critique of somebody or like making a general observation, it always has to be like put into context whether we want it to be or not. And so sharing an opinion about an individual look, yes, is very different from sharing an opinion about the whole of an individual person and what that look now means about their brand and their persona going forward. What I mean is that engaging in meaningless critique of an outfit doesn't cause much harm on the surface, but there are some folks who will take it a step further, implying that Millie should have stayed true to this more innocent, childlike persona forever, and that celebrities in general should be afraid of aging, which is a more harmful touchpoint than just saying you don't like her blonde hair. And whether or not that's fair, this is the kind of critique that gets put into the same box. A box that got blown wide open when Millie started responding to journalists who have been writing about her look.
Hi everyone, it's Millie. I want to take a moment to address something that I think is bigger than just me. Something that affects every young woman who grows up under public scrutiny. I think this is very necessary to talk about. I started in the industry when I was 10 years old. I grew up in front of the world, and for some reason, people can't seem to grow up with me. Instead, they act like I'm supposed to stay frozen in time, like I should still look the way I did on Stranger Things Season 1. And because I don't, I'm now a target. I want to talk about some of the articles that have recently released while I'm on my press tour, and some of the writers who are so desperate to tear young women down. One article reads, "Why are Gen Zers like Millie Bobby Brown aging so badly?" Written by Lydia Hawkin. "What has Millie Bobby Brown done to her face?" Written by John Eli. Millie Bobby Brown mistaken for someone's mum as she guides younger sister Ava through LA. Written by Cassie Carpenter. Another article reads, "Little Britain's Matt Lucas takes savage swipe at Millie Bobby Brown's new mummy makeover look." Written by Bethann Edwards. Amplifying an insult rather than questioning why a grown man is mocking a young woman's appearance. This isn't journalism. This is bullying. The fact that adult writers are spending their time dissecting my face, my body, my choices is disturbing, and the fact that some of these articles are written by women makes it even worse. We always talk about supporting and uplifting young women, but when it comes down to it, it seems a lot easier to just tear them down for clicks. Disillusioned people can't handle seeing a girl become a woman, on her terms, not their own. I refuse to apologize for growing up. I refuse to make myself smaller to fit the unrealistic expectations of people who can't handle seeing a girl become a woman. I will not be shamed for how I look, how I dress, or how I present myself. We have become a society where it's so much easier to criticize than it is to pay a compliment. Why is it the knee-jerk reaction to say something horrible rather than just say something nice? If you have a problem with that, I have to wonder, what is it that actually makes you so uncomfortable? Let's do better, not just for me, but for every young girl who deserves to grow up without the fear of being torn apart for simply existing.
Now let me just say it. Good for her. I think Millie has been the target of so much unwarranted misogynistic criticism since she was a literal child, and I think her response is perfectly fine given the amount of shit that she has gone through. What complicates this for me, though, is where the line is when discussing beauty and aesthetic trends for women in particular, and I'm speaking like outside of Millie's specific case, to be clear. Like, I'll give some examples. Thinness is in. Everyone's on Ozempic. There are entire accounts dedicated to clocking the girl's new teeth or their buccal fat removal. And like it or not, these aesthetic changes do correlate with the politic of the time. And the fact that a lot of female celebrities feel the need to change themselves to fit with this evolving standard warrants a critique in and of itself. I guess the line for me is like when you're directing it at the person with no additional context. Saying Miley's teeth look fucked up is different than I am disappointed that Miley was pressured into getting veneers. You know what I mean? And maybe you think about this differently in sort of a philosophical way. Maybe you think that women who live this kind of life in the public eye aren't deserving of any modicum of grace because that is the trade-off for being famous. Again, they have amassed this mass amount of wealth and capital and access that you in your regular life will never see, and so you think that it's a valid trade-off, to have a couple mean comments in your Instagram posts every now and again, right? But what happens when they start doing it to you?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. vanilla latte, my friend. Black iced Americano, my friend. Black cold brew, my
The internet is meaner than it ever has been. This is just an example I can think of off the top of my head, but this is a TikTok of an influencer named Caitlin Campbell who has a coffee truck business, and most of their videos are just compilations of them saying good morning and serving coffee to customers, and every comment is just the nastiest shit that you've ever seen, and no doubt that part of it is just that they're plus-sized and probably queer-coded, but this isn't a celebrity, it's just a person serving coffee, and sure, they've gotten a bit of a platform out of it, but just because they post themselves publicly online, does that make it acceptable to just shit on their looks? It even happens to people who fit the more conventionally palatable TikTok archetype. Apparently people are criticizing this influencer saying her boobs are too far apart. Like, what are we doing? How are we ever going to have any productive conversations over beauty standards and trends ever again when everyone is just so busy being way too fucking mean? Call me the friend that's too woke, I guess, but I just think our capacity for unnecessary cruelty really overpowers the ability to have meaningful discussion about what it's like to be a woman in the current day and the power of desirability politics. It's at the core of everything we do and say online, and the most we can derive from it collectively is, haha, Millie Bobby Brown looks like a 40-year-old mob wife. Like, do better, be smarter. They're coming for us all eventually, and bullying a 21-year-old is not going to give you any power or effective means of solidarity. I'm tired. I guess the last thing I want to talk about here is the difference between like warranted versus unwarranted criticism, because there is also, beyond Millie's appearance, a bit more critique going on right now about like her actual acting choices and her trajectory in Hollywood, something that we talk about on this channel all the time. And so we're gonna dive into that now. So Millie hasn't exactly gone on to have the most prestigious career post Stranger Things. She starred in those Enola Holmes movies, and like I said, she was in a film called The Electric State, which recently came out. It was directed by the Russo brothers, which currently has some abysmal ratings and reviews. Some people have credited her film taste to a quote from an interview she did a while back where she said, "I just can't sit there and look at a screen for that long." People come up to me and say, "You should definitely watch this movie, it would change your life," and I'm like, how long do I have to sit there for? Because my brain and I don't even like sitting for my own movies. I think a lot of discourse about this goes back to the residual Stranger Things hate, because that show became the epitome of everything wrong with the modern day television landscape. And you know, Millie going from a declining quality Duffer Brothers Netflix show to a Russo Brothers Netflix movie that may as well be a money laundering scheme makes a lot of sense, but people have also pointed out that Millie's perceived lack of interest in prestige or film history may have a lot to do with the fact that she was essentially the breadwinner for her family as a child actor, and that this is all she has ever known. So the fact that she may not have the same trajectory as some of her contemporaries makes perfect sense to me, you know? Like, not everyone is gonna be Zendaya, that's just how it is. Not to mention that the first time she actively expressed interest in playing a role, like she said publicly that she'd love to play Britney Spears in a biopic, people started shitting all over that immediately, over a project that doesn't even exist. Like, this kid truly cannot win. And I guess the whole Britney Spears thing has, you know, evoked a specific, like, train of thought for me in regards to, like, these young women who become either child actors or child stars, or they get famous when they're really young, like Britney Spears, you know, Lindsay Lohan, whoever, and sometimes, like, they have this sort of troubled arc. Not saying that Millie is going through that right now, you know, I don't know her personally, I just know about, like, her marriage and her movie choices and, you know, her recent appearance and whatever else. But again, I think it's just the Britney connection here is just making me think about how, like, we're so eager to sort of, like, lionize these women once they come out the other side of things. Like, that's what I think about when I think about, like, a Britney Spears biopic. Britney was everybody's punchline for so goddamn long, and now, you know, we're being really stringent over who gets to play her in a biopic and who gets to honor the legacy of Britney Spears, as if these same people weren't, you know, dragging her to shit for all those years when she was, you know, going through it, you know what I mean? Same thing with, like, Lindsay Lohan. I found the Lindsay Lohan, like, renaissance conversation to sort of be a weird thing, because, like, yeah, she had, you know, her own kind of various mental health struggles and whatnot, and now she's, like, on the other side of it, and she looks beautiful, and she's radiating, and she looks like she's never been younger, and she's so gorgeous, and, like, who cares what kind of plastic surgery she had, you know? My camera died, so let me just finish the thought here via the phone, I guess, but my point here being, like, if Lindsay Lohan hadn't kind of come out with, like, this residual glow up after going through all these struggles and whatever, would she be getting the same amount of praise? Does that make sense? Like, why does a woman have to come out pretty, or not even pretty, whatever your version of desirable and acceptable, like whatever that is, why do they have to, you know, go through that and have like a physical appearance change for you to give them respect? I just feel like people have convinced themselves that they're so good at being the moral arbiters of who objectively deserves redemption and who deserves cruelty based entirely on vibes and their totally 100% accurate scale of morality. But it's all purely based on aesthetics. It's based on what makes you comfortable. You don't want to interrogate why Lindsay Lohan looks that way now. You don't want to talk about why Millie Bobby Brown might actually be pushing herself toward this more mature look as someone who grew up as the target of countdown clocks celebrating the day she turned 18. I'm not even gonna get all that into Amanda Bynes today, but I'd be willing to bet you that people would be much more willing to respect her privacy about the stuff that she went through if she was conventionally attractive. However, because she has drawn out eyebrows and lip piercings and she doesn't look the way that she did when she was 16, you're allowed to turn her into a joke and a walking billboard for whatever conspiracy you found on TikTok that day. People are so much more shallow than they'd like to admit, and I wish we would just start being honest about it. I just think that if we're going to lean into this era of meanness and cruelty and vitriol, which it seems like we're doing, we should reserve that energy for the people in power who actually suck a lot. Like, Bill Burr has the right idea, guys. He's on the right track more so than anybody else these days.
That idiot Elon Musk.
Oh.
That guy, like, he's gonna, like, who evidently is a Nazi. Like, I just refuse to believe that it was an accidental 2-time Sieg Heil. And he does it at a presidential inauguration. This is why I hate liberals. It's like liberals have no teeth whatsoever. They just go, oh my God, can you believe I'm getting out of the country? I'm just like, you're going to leave the country because of one guy with dyed hair plugs and a laminated face who makes a bad car and has an obsolete social media platform? You're going to leave this. Why doesn't he leave? Why isn't he stopped? What are we so afraid of this guy who can't fight his way out of a wet paper bag?
You can take him on.
Like, why do liberals just sit back and not, they have nothing?
What are you doing?
This.
Okay.
This. You got to speak up about it. You don't just go like, oh my God, what?
What I'm saying is, you might feel powerless, and you might have this anger and hate and vitriol inside of you that needs some kind of healthy and creative outlet. And I think directing it toward the woman of the week is a futile and useless pastime. Use your propensity for dramatics and weaponize that BFA degree in a way that might actually help us out of this mess. Leave women alone, or get the fuck out of the way.